Hey, I'm Chris J. Rosser with bcsurf.com, and laid out in front of me are the ingredients of shred. In this video, we're going to be showing you how to choose components for a skateboard and how to put them all together. So we're going to be going through how to choose a deck, we got grip tape, trucks, bearings, wheels, hardware, risers, and we'll be showing you in a step-by-step process how to get all this stuff assembled. The first choice when choosing a skateboard is probably going to be to hone in on what deck you want to ride on. A lot of decks have a lot of different sizes, and how to choose this usually comes down to about how tall you are and how big your foot is. Now, for little grommets out there, or just you little guys and little gals, my best choice is to choose a mini. They're going to be smaller than a full-size deck. Right here in my hand, this is a full size. So it's going to be a little bit smaller than a full-size deck. Also not going to be quite as wide. And since you're a little bit shorter and a little bit smaller foot, it's going to be easier to control. So you're going to be able to turn it around easier, do flip tricks easier. And sure, it's not a full size, but if you can learn faster and do more stuff, that's a win-win situation. Now, as we are starting to hit about like age 11 to 13, or maybe if you're like, I just have a little bit smaller foot, a 7.5 to a 7.75 might be your sweet spot. 7.5 is going to be not quite as wide as the big stuff, so it's going to be easier to flip around since you have less board turning around. It's also going to be a little bit lighter, so you can kind of get those flicks a little bit higher. If you're unsure what size to get, I'd recommend starting off at a 7.75. Both those sizes are pretty good at street. Now above 7.75, we're going to be looking at 8s and up. Now the benefits of having a nice bigger deck, especially if you're a taller guy or have bigger feet, is you've got a bigger foot platform and the deck is a little bit longer. So especially if you're taller, probably wider shoulders, and kind of fits up to get your feet right under your shoulders. Also with the deck, feel out the nose and the tail. The nose is going to be a little bit wider and a little bit longer than the tail. And if you really like doing nollies or switch tricks, try getting a nice size nose. That way it's a little bit easier for those styles. As far as pop goes, it's kind of a, it's going to relate to the nose and tail, but it really is going to relate to how stiff the actual wood of the deck is. The stiffer it is, the longer it's going to keep that fresh pop feeling for longer, and it's also going to react quicker as the board's going to be bending less. Some decks coming out have a nice technology, such as this one has this P2 technology for spring-loaded pop that'll keep that deck feeling really stiff, and that way you're transferring all the energy into your tricks. Definitely worth checking out, especially if you want to increase that pop just a little bit. Now once you've got your deck kind of worked out, we want to get that grip tape on there. And grip tapes, there's a lot out there, anywhere from the really gritty to the not so gritty. This one's already been applied on here, and since really putting on grip tape is worthy of its own video, we've taken the time, made its own video to kind of walk you through step by step on how to get it right onto there, looking good, no bubbles on it. Now once you've got your board all gripped up, you can get everything ready to shred. You can set that aside for a second. We'll be coming back to this, but first we're going to start assembling the wheels, the bearings, and the trucks. Well, so let's start off with the wheel selection. Now, we've got our kind of a range here. You've got anything from the small wheels down to stuff like 48 millimeters, and then large wheels from anywhere from 54 meters and up. On the smaller side, like these guys over here, the smaller wheels are going to be better for your flip tricks. They'll be a little closer to the ground, have a little bit smaller rotation, and also they'll have a little bit easier kick since you'll be closer to the ground, getting that tail in contact or that nose in contact a little bit earlier. They also pop off of grinds a little bit easier since you don't have this wheel to clear. Now on the bigger side of things, bigger wheels are great for transportation since they roll a little bit better. They generally have a little bit more grip just from the extra size. They also lock you in on grinds as they're a little bit bigger, so if you have trouble from sliding off or the wheels kind of coming off, try a little bit bigger wheel. Since they are a little bit bigger, they're a little higher from the ground, so they take a little bit longer for flip tricks. Now, you also have to consider your wheel width on there, not just the diameter, but the actual width of the wheel. Thinner wheels are pretty fine for street, as you usually have a lot of grip for that already. If you're going to be transitioning over ramps or parks, you might want to check out a little bit wheel that's a little bit thicker. It'll add a little bit more grip for you, that way you're not sliding around the slippery surfaces. For skating street, we usually recommend anywhere from a 48 to a 54. And if you're doing like parks, ramps, even bowls, maybe try 54 on up to find the proper amount of grip that you need. So now I've got our wheels kind of picked out and got some info about those. We're time to get over to the bearings, that way we can get this thing rolling. Now with bearings, one of the things you're going to see a lot is an ABEC rating system. These usually come in odd numbers like 3, 5, and 7. Now these are good numbers for comparing within a company. For example, I've got a couple of sets of independent bearings here. This one happens to be a set of ABEC 5s. This one is a set of ABEC 7s. Within the same company, it's usually a good indicator of the quality of it. So the ABEC 7s are probably going to be a little bit better, have a little bit better roll time. It's tough to compare them cross companies since some ABEC 7s will be $9 and some will be like $30. So then it gets a little bit more murky, but generally ABEC 7s are a little bit better made. Now, some companies, like Bones for example, they don't include an ABEC rating because theirs really aren't. It's kind of meant for machinery and motors and stuff. They're called theirs skate rated. And now these are bones, I like these. They make a good set of bearings. Reds is probably one of our best selling bearings, a great value at the price. If you're having trouble choosing, I definitely say check these out because we have a lot of riders that really, really like them. Now bearings are one thing that's probably the first thing to wear out on skateboards, but with proper maintenance, you can have this for a long time. We're making a video about that, so check out our channel about how to clean bearings and how to maintain. So now that we've got kind of our bearings and stuff, got some knowledge about there, let's talk about getting these all together. Now putting bearings together with the wheels is probably the next step in creating a skateboard, so we're going to do that. Now once you have the bearings, you have 8 of them, so it's going to be 2 per wheel. And a lot of times bearings are going to have 2 sides. One side will look like this, or have kind of a shield there for rubber. The other side is going to look like this, a little bit more open. You might even be able to see the ball bearings that are inside of it. Now the one that's the open side, you're going to want that to be towards the inner side of the wheel, so not facing outside, so this doesn't have as much protection. This outside here, that's actually going to be your shielded portion, so that's going to help to keep dirt and grime and all that nasty stuff out and keep extending the life of your bearings. So once you got that, just going to grab the wheel. One bearing's going to go on the outside. Now at the shop we use a bearing press because on skate wheel it can be kind of tough to press in there. If you really need to, you can kind of slip them on the end of a truck and kind of slam them in. If you're at a shop or you happen to have a bearing press, which kind of looks like this guy right here, putting on bearings is a lot easier. And we're going to kind of press the rest of the bearings in there. Wheel and bearings. Now we've got all 4 of our wheels kind of set up. So now we're going to transition over to trucks. When choosing trucks, size again is going to become an important factor. And the easiest rule of thumb is this. All you got to do is grab your board, grab the prospective truck you're thinking about getting, and match up the size. Now you want to kind of look for it to match up the size to the board, just like this one. This is an 8.0 deck. This is an Indy 139 truck, and the size matches up pretty well. If you have a board that's where the truck is sticking out too far wide, like sticking out like here, it's going to be a little too wide and it might not perform the way it's supposed to. On the flip side, if it's too short, it might be wheel biting a little too much since the turn will be happening completely under the board, and no one wants to be wheel biting and eating it all that time. So just kind of match it up. As far as truck height goes, lows are going to be a little bit easier to flip. So a little closer to the ground, get that contact earlier, and get that trick started. Now, if you're riding a little bit bigger wheels, you might want to consider getting highs. They'll give you a little bit more clearance to avoid wheel bite, and also a higher truck has a little bit more leverage and carves just a little bit tighter. Now, once you get your truck kind of set, we're just going to get the wheels onto the trucks. Most of the trucks are going to come with a couple of these little spacers. This just ensures that the actual wheel is not going to be coming in contact with your truck, but only the inner part of the bearing, and that's fine. So we just want to make sure we have one on the inside. Slip your wheel with bearings right on over it. One more spacer. And then finally, grab a skate tool or a wrench or anything that you can to kind of tighten that up. We'll put that one right on. Now for tightness, you want this to be snug. You want the wheel to be able to spin freely, and that way you're going to be having the most forward motion and keeping your roll going. You don't want to be too loose, but a little play is okay. So usually I kind of tighten it down, and I kind of usually loosen it up until I get that nice little play. And there we go. Alrighty, and then we're going to kind of repeat on all 4 sides. Now, a couple of different types here with risers. You have hard risers, which pretty much the only thing they do is just increase the height. And you also have some like these, which are a little softer, which are kind of like shock pads. They do absorb a little bit of impact, especially if you're doing bigger tricks and you don't mind having the extra clearance. Maybe check those out as a cushion impact just a little bit. Now, for hardware, is pretty much just going to be determined by the thickness of your deck, and really if you need risers or not. For most decks, and this is just kind of your normal stuff, 7/8 of an inch or an inch should be absolutely fine as hardware goes. If you are riding a riser, you probably need at least an inch, maybe up to like an inch and an eighth, inch and a quarter, just to make sure you have enough clearance. Ideally, you want to have the screw tightened down with just a little bit of the screw sticking out. So now we've gone through pretty much everything from board and grip tape, bearings, wheels, trucks, hardware, and risers. It's time to start final assembly. So get back, grab your board that's already gripped, get your trucks and everything, grab your hardware, and we're gonna start going. The first thing I kind of do here is we're just gonna kind of push the hardware through all the little guide holes right here. Push this all through. Now at this point, if you are using risers, you want to go ahead, grab those risers and put them off. On this particular one, we're not going to be doing that, but this is where you start placing those on. So then you grab your truck, and on street trucks, you're just going to have the hanger facing out. Kind of line all those guys up. Then just take all of your little hardware and kind of now, if you have a drill with an attachment, it can make this process a lot shorter, but for most of us, we're probably gonna be hand tightening. So we can always take like a skate tool like so, kind of hold it on one side, and then we'll kind of just hand tighten the other one. Now, one note about tightening is you do not want to have these things over tighten, especially a new board, hasn't been broken in yet, so you don't want to over tighten these. So if you are using a drill, just make sure you're not putting too much force on it. Most skate hardware is meant to kind of just end up flush with the deck. So that's about as much as you need. It shouldn't be traveling through the deck, and it shouldn't be like underneath the wood, or it should be just kind of like flush. And then on to the other side. Alrighty, and that pretty much completes our board assembly. Everything's on there, tightened down, ready to rip and go. If you have any questions about any components or anything, please post in the comments below. More than happy to help you out choosing the right equipment or getting your board set up. And yeah, my name is Chris J. Rosser with bcsurf.com. Have fun out there. Go forth and shred.